Amos is the oldest or most ancient writing prophet that we have in the Bible. Definitely there were prophets before him, but in terms of like his own written words, he's the oldest. He's living sometime around 740, 730, 720 BC. He actually would have been perhaps a generation older than even Isaiah. And it's interesting as we listen to his words, he is trying to get people back on the covenant path. This is really important. We repeat it a lot because it matters so much. But the covenant made at Mount Sinai really is this fundamental covenant where God said, I will be your God, you'll be my people. Let me reveal to you my expectations for how you will have peace and prosperity in the land. I'm going to give to you a list of covenantal obligations that I want you to live up to. And Amos, like many other prophets, has to detail for to the people how they have not lived up to those obligations. Let's turn to chapter 3 of Amos. Hear this word that the Lord hath spoken against you, O children of Israel, against the whole family which I brought up from the land of Egypt. Remember, God is calling upon the memory of all the incredible deeds of salvation he had provided to their ancestors, saving them from Egypt, bringing them to Sinai and saying, I'm your God. You can be my people. Here's what I expect from you. And I think you guys see where this is going. But now Amos is going to have to provide a list for how the people have not lived up to their covenantal obligations. They have effectively cheated on God in the relationship. Verse 2, you only have I known of all the families of the earth. Israel is supposed to be God's special treasure. Therefore, I will punish you for all your iniquities. Now, some people think that the God of the Old Testament is just an angry, evil, mean God. And it turns out you actually have the opposite of an extremely loving, patient, merciful, and kind God who has spent generations working with the people, trying to be in this relationship, and they persistently cheat on him. And he says, you know, given the covenantal obligations, I have to allow you to suffer the consequences of your unfaithfulness. And therefore, he has to allow them to be punished. And otherwise, he would not be a just God. Verse 3, can two walk together except they be agreed? Can God and his people be together in a relationship if one party continuously runs away to go worship other gods or to not treat their neighbors well or to not love God? No. Will a lion roar in the forest when he hath no prey? Will a young lion cry out of his den if he hath taken nothing? So God is now using these rhetorical devices to get people to think like, hey, listen, this is going to happen. This is a consequence of your faithlessness, is that you are going to be punished. And we'll just jump ahead, and because all these rhetorical questions where the answer is, well, clearly God is in charge, is summed up in verse 7. Surely the Lord God will do nothing, but he revealeth his secrets unto his servants the prophets. Meaning, if you're about to be punished, it's not because it won't be a surprise. I will have told you long in advance. I will send my prophets to remind you of the covenant that I have made with you, that I gave to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, that you get all this access to these great blessings. And I will remind you of your covenantal obligations back to me. And I will remind you what will happen if you fail to keep the covenantal expectations. These will be the punishments. It's also significant that the word here, secret, really means divine counsel. And in the ancient Israelite conception of the world, they believed that there was this divine council, that God himself was supreme in the council, but he had messengers and angels that would be part of that divine retinue. Imagine in government today, you might have advisors or cabinet ministers who advise the president. And that's how, in some ways, the ancient Israelites saw it, that you'd have a group of advisors or people who, with God, would talk and communicate and counsel one with another. And then when God would make the final decision based on what the council talked about, he would send a messenger out. And the word messenger in Hebrew is angel, or a prophet who's been invited into that divine council to declare to everybody, here is what's been decided. So there shouldn't be any surprises. That is the force of what we're getting to in Amos chapter 3. Now let's turn to Amos chapter 4. It turns out that the ancient prophets were quite forceful and quite open in declaring from God's inspiration where they saw problems in society. And in this case, Amos is calling out really wealthy women in ancient Israelite society. And he doesn't use very kind terms to talk about the women, the wealthy women of the ancient society, who should have been using their time and resources to bless the lives of those within their communities. Here's what he says. Verse 1. Hear this word, ye cows, or kine of Bashan, that are in the mountains of Samaria, which oppress the poor, which crush the needy, which say to their masters, bring and let us drink. So you can imagine these wealthy people sitting around, eating and drinking and being merry, while people are suffering with injustice, any form of injustice. And God has given these wealthy people, whether it's money or education or some other form of talent, resource, the ability to relieve the suffering and injustice of others. And when those who have do not share with those who do not have, that is massive injustice. And God will bring down his punishments. Verse 2, the Lord has sworn or has declared by his holiness that, lo, the day shall come upon you that he will take you away with hooks and your posterity with fish hooks. Now, it's interesting. Within a generation, maybe within 10 or 15 years, these wealthy women that Amos is talking about were actually hauled away into Assyrian captivity as part of the 10 lost tribes. And we lose access to who these people are after this. And so Amos's prophecy comes about because the people practiced injustice. God said, my land is a land of justice. If you're going to be unjust, then I will remove you from the land and I will bring in people, new people who can learn how to practice justice. So what's the takeaway for us? God's covenants are the same. The covenant to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob is fully and freely available to all of us. And God also expects us to show our love and loyalty back to him in covenantal relationship. That's what's revealed in scriptures and from modern day prophets. Will we be covenantally loyal to God? Will we be faithful to him? Will we learn the lesson from the ancient Israelites that that when people are unfaithful, they lose access to God's blessings? Will we take the time to love our neighbors as ourselves, to bless those in our sphere of influence by sharing our time and talents and resources, the gifts that God has given us, with others, so that there's more justice in the world, more goodness, more happiness, more kindness. All of us can just be a little bit better each and every day, and we can give of what God has given to us.